What would I say to 10-year-old me about skateboarding if I could look at that kid? For a start, that kid would look at me and say, "What would you know, old man?" And then I'd say, "You'll learn. I'm not that old. I'm actually 10-year-old me still." But I wouldn't say anything. Like, I'd just say, go on this road and discover and stay with it, and it's going to hurt, but everything positive in your life is going to come from this stupid wooden toy.
Unique signals from outer space, manifestos from the human race. Are we doing okay? All my salmon with poems by Blake. When my soul slipped in and the God was nothing fake. Oh! Evenings, mornings, afternoons.
Sean Mussett is Gravel Burns. He's like been there forever. He's that punk guy. He's that, how does he skate with one eye? What's with those clothes? So my first skateboard was, I started skateboarding on my uncle's, like really dodgy, like clay wheels, plate metal trucks, sort of like a very, very original Surface Sam type of deck, like just a timber board really. The next board I got was found out years later, dude at Ray Richards used to make these like sort of Bain Superflex fiberglass rip-offs because he was a surfboard maker. And so I had one of those with like Chicago trucks, Cadillac wheels, open bearings, the whole thing. The true love of my life of skateboarding was a Steve Olsen Santa Cruz, probably 1979, red dot, most punk board ever. My ability with skateboarding caught up with my vision of how I wanted to skate when we had a ramp in Merriweather, which we built in 1986, and I there were other things going on, but I couldn't do anything but think about skateboarding. And then we had this ramp, and I was at uni, and I just can't do this anymore. I dropped out of uni, and all I could do was skate, and I skated every day I think I dropped out of uni in like halfway through first semester, so April, May, and from May to whenever, December, when we had to pull the ramp down, I skated every day. And I was learning new tricks every day, and the only thing that slowed me down was that we had no one in Australia that skated that we could learn from. And then this guy called Lee Ralph turned up from New Zealand, and him and Gregor Rankin were skating like American pros. And all of a sudden we went, all right, that's skateboarding. And it just went through the roof after that. I just went, oh man, that's insane. Like, you got to remember, it's like there was no YouTube, there was no smartphones. You had to learn by looking at a still photo in a magazine and trying to work out how they got there and then how they got back down again. It was crazy. And then Lee Ralph turned up. So with skateboarding, like, the breakthrough trick was learning to fly. It was like literally you could take off, fly through the air and land And I don't remember the first time because I probably fell off a heap of times. I remember practicing it on this busted ass wooden ramp in my driveway and like lifting myself off. I may as well have just been bunny hopping on the ground, but I was lifting myself off and putting myself back down. But the first time I really, in a skateboard park in Coffs Harbour, took off, flew through the air and landed, I was like, yeah, I can't see myself doing that. There's no pictures, there's no video, but that is what skateboarding is about. That is like I'm doing what they do in pictures in magazines, and no one else I knew could do that. And I was like, I can't think of anything else in my life that ever felt the same way as that feeling of just going, I'm flying, I'm doing this thing that other people can't do. What is it about skateboarding that brings on people's reactions, whether it's positive or negative? It's a very loaded thing. It's like, and I've been doing, when I started, it was like, it's as if, it's like school handball, heaps of people did it. It wasn't a very public thing, and you certainly didn't talk about it outside of the guys that played handball at school. Then it became a bit of a thing, and it was really frowned upon. You're talking very early 70s, mid 70s, and it was just like back then people were still, that generation of adults had grown up in the 50s, and they were 25 or 30 years old, but they dressed like they were 55. From the 50s. And they just had this, it was just too much for them. Like I just remember I wrote a song once and it was just called Getting in People's Way, about riding a skateboard. And I've always been able to control the skateboard. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to run into you. I'm not going to dent your car. I'm not going to let you, you're not going to spill your milk. I know what I'm doing. The fact that you don't know what I'm doing is not my problem. I'm not going to judge you on your golf swing. I'm not going to judge you on your choice of polo shirt or the fact that you roll your collar up. Just leave me alone to my skateboarding. I'm honestly not going to get in your way. Just the fact that I'm sharing the footpath with you, it's not my problem. It's your problem. So I went through that, and now all of a sudden it's like it's literally going to be in the Olympics. And now there's skateboard parents. What's that about? I love the support that kids are getting from their parents, but you don't need your mum and dad at the skateboard park. Just drop the kid off, let the kid hurt themselves, and then come and pick the kid up. Don't hover over the bowl. This is just my judgment. This is my truth. I didn't grow up with that. I just think kids need to be free of that structure of parenting that inhibits their own personal growth. You're going to hurt yourself at skateboarding, okay? That stuff's made of concrete. When you fall on it, it's like falling on concrete. When in my life have I felt like I can't do this anymore, this skateboarding, I can't do this anymore, it's just too hard? It's kind of always been like that, but I just remember it. Yeah, there was a time when probably 1987 going into 1988, and we were doing a lot of street skating. There were no ramps. The ramp in Merriweather had gone. The ramp in Broadmeadow we hadn't built. So probably 1987, and we were street skating and travelling to Sydney to skate, and my knees were just shredded. My left knee had been operated on, and it just wasn't coping. And the pain was just stupid, and I was just like, I just can't. I'm not going to be able to keep doing this. And I've got a picture in my head of this artwork I did where I was the artwork was like myself, like a self-portrait, waking up from a nightmare with this thought bubble of a of a wheelchair, and it was very real to me. And it's like, what am I going to do instead of skateboarding? I can't imagine what it's going to be like not skateboarding, but it was so real, like the pain and the constant impediment of pain was just crazy. I think the question is, why do I keep skateboarding even though it hurts? Why do I keep skateboarding even though it hurts? It's like, yeah, you just have to do it. And I blew my knee out in an unskateboarding related, like it was the most banal story. I jumped up to get a rope off a rafter. My knee dislocated as I went up. It was the first time it ever happened. And when I landed, it wasn't where it should have been, so my leg just snapped. Like it literally just tore everything inside my knee. And that was the first time I ever, and I was 11, first time I discovered real physical pain. You know, I'd broken my arm before, I'd fallen out of trees, I'd done stuff like that. So everything that happened after that was less painful. And once you're doing something like that, where it just, skateboarding meets all my needs. Like it meets my freedom need, my fun need, my love and belonging need. It gives me friends. It's given me everything positive in my life. And to stop doing it in some form or other, and I do it in a form now that I can cope with physically. But I don't feel like I'm compromising at all. Like I'm doing it, but it's something I can cope with physically. But if I wasn't doing it, I would be an unhappy, unfulfilled human being. So in terms of evolution of skateboarding, there's two very clear aspects that have affected me. So I went overseas in 1990 and I was a vert skater and I skated bowls, ramps. In that time, in Australia, in the rest of the world, everything just went technical street. But because I was travelling, I was out of touch, I didn't see it happening. And I came back to Australia and it's like, what's happened? Like all that stuff that we used to do on footpaths, guys are doing on vert now, you know? And I was like, I'm just not even, I can't even try and do that, let alone, you know, be part of that. Plus I was 5 years older than the kids who were doing it, or the guys who were doing it. So I just went, this is beyond me. I'm not skateboarding 24 hours a day anymore. I've got to work. I want to buy a house, all that stuff. So that happened, and that was very clear. And I think a lot of skaters my age just stopped skating. I know in Newcastle, I was the only guy my age still skateboarding. I'd go and skate at ISO, and there'd be no one there, you know. Then the next massive shift in the evolution of my skating was they built the bowl at Bar Beach, and I had a crack at it for 2 or 3 years, trying to revisit being a vert skater and having vert tricks and doing vert stuff and being in vert comps and wanting to compete with, like I'd go to Bondi and skate in, and you've got Steve Caballero and Mike McGill and Tony Hawk in your heat, Christian Azoy. You know, I stood on the platform in Bondi with those guys in a contest, and it's like, this is cool, but I can't do what they're doing. I just don't have that thing anymore. And then I just went, I don't need to. And then the guy who's on that skateboard over there, Steve Olsen, I met him. He's like my number one skateboarding idol. And I met him, I think for the first time about 3 years ago at Bondi. And he just said, man, I don't need to do that anymore. I just like all 4 wheels, Gravel. Just keep all 4 wheels in the bowl, man. And I was like, it's really nice to hear you say that, because that's where I'm at. I don't need to do that. Like, I've done that. I'm not proving anything to anyone. I just get in the bowl, I do my thing, and I'm happy with that. And I think that's evolution. That's the evolution of skateboarding. You have to, and it's funny because I was never a very technically good skateboarder, but I had amazing stamina and incredibly persistent. And I think I just expressed myself by just having that strength to keep going and just to. And now I'm like, I've been skateboarding 40 plus years, and I can go faster on a skateboard than I've ever been before. I'm smoother. I think about it in a completely different way because of my limitations physically. But I enjoy it as much now as I ever have. It's crazy how it feels to still be able to do it. And I think that's how I express myself. It's like I really feel good on a skateboard, you know? I can't walk very well, but I get on a skateboard and I'm 25. And that's a good feeling.
I gave you life and liberty. I gave you every part of me. Love is, love is, love is, love is the great night. Come. Unique signals from outer space.